It's almost the end of President Biden's term. And it's really striking how differently he and former President Trump are choosing to spend their time. Biden seems to be in a full court press to cement his policy legacy, while Trump is focused on, well, let's just say different things.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dichotomy. On one hand, you have Biden laser focused on pushing through policy initiatives and highlighting what he sees as his accomplishments. On the other hand, you have Trump, who's fixated on airing grievances, revisiting controversies, and engaging in, shall we say, more performative actions. It really makes you think. What does this tell us about their core values and their visions for America? What kind of approach do you find more compelling in a leader? Before we dive deeper, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on future conversations just like this.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with Biden, he's really hammering home his economic policies, especially his criticism of tax cuts for the wealthy. He argues that those cuts haven't trickled down to working families and have actually contributed to the decline of the middle class.
Yeah, he's framing it as a fundamental difference in philosophy. Biden sees himself as championing jobs of the future and investing in industries and technologies that he believes will benefit the middle class in the long run, lowering costs, raising wages, strengthening workers and small businesses. That seems to be his economic mantra. It is interesting to see him leaning so hard into this message as he tries to shape his legacy.
He definitely wants to be remembered for putting working families at the center of his economic agenda. Remember that West Wing interview where he said he wants to be remembered for keeping his promises and delivering on what he set out to do?
It seems integrity and follow-through are paramount to him. And it's not just about policy either. There's a deliberate effort to humanize his image. Take his annual tradition of visiting the Children's National Hospital during the holidays to read to the kids. It's a heartwarming image that underscores his focus on caring for Americans, especially those who are most vulnerable.
While Trump is busy revisiting old battles, Biden's out there showcasing tangible examples of his accomplishments, particularly when it comes to infrastructure.
Exactly. The upgraded terminal at San Diego International Airport is a perfect example. It's a visible, concrete example of how his infrastructure bill is leading to modernization. And then there's the new Portal North Bridge, a critical link for rail travel between New Jersey and New York City. These are projects that directly affect the lives of millions of Americans.
And let's not forget the Biden-Harris administration's rule to cap overdraft fees, a policy that's designed to protect everyday Americans from predatory banking practices. So thinking about these initiatives, what resonates with you? Do these actions align with your priorities for a leader? If you're finding this analysis insightful, hit that like button. Now moving on to the judicial front.
Biden's made significant progress in reshaping the federal courts. With a record 235 federal judges confirmed, he's clearly aiming to leave a lasting mark on the judiciary.
And he's been very vocal about the diversity of his appointments, a deliberate move to make the courts more representative of the American people.
Absolutely. It's a strategic move with potential long-term implications. Think about the potential impact on areas like climate change litigation or reproductive rights. These appointments could shape legal interpretations for decades to come. And let's not forget his continued push to ban assault weapons, a consistent theme throughout his presidency.
Now turning to former President Trump. It's a vastly different picture. Instead of focusing on policy achievements, he seems preoccupied with past grievances and aligning himself with controversial figures.
It's definitely a different approach. For instance, his unwavering support for Matt Gaetz, despite the cloud of controversy surrounding him, raises eyebrows.
And his praise for Jim Mattis, his former defense secretary who's been accused of sexual assault and other serious misconduct, is equally perplexing.
What's even more baffling is his admission that he chose Mattis as defense secretary simply because he liked his appearances on Fox News. Imagine basing such a critical decision. With access to nuclear codes on a cable news persona, it raises serious questions about his judgment and decision-making process.
Speaking of questionable judgment, we have to address the misinformation he's been spreading. Take his claim about a 25% increase in childhood cancer. That's simply not true. The actual increase is closer to 6%. A significant difference, but nowhere near the alarming figure he's touting.
And his assertion that he's never seen anti-drug campaigns is simply absurd. This is your brain on drugs, ring a bell. Those campaigns have been around for decades. It's clear that factual accuracy isn't always a priority for him. He seems more interested in pushing a narrative, regardless of whether it's grounded in reality.
And he's still very much engaged in divisive culture war issues. His attacks on critical race theory and transgender individuals, despite the tiny number of transgender athletes in the entire NCAA, are prime examples.
Remember his proclamation that there are only two genders under his administration. These are inflammatory statements meant to stoke fear and division, not to address real issues facing the country. It's a strategy that has proven effective in mobilizing his base, but it also alienates a significant portion of the population.
It's all very performative and attention-grabbing. A stark contrast to Biden's more measured and policy-driven approach.
Let's not forget his outlandish pronouncements. He demanded the return of the Panama Canal, which was promptly rejected by Panama. He falsely claimed he single-handedly convinced Europe to buy American natural gas. And of course, he continues to spread unfounded conspiracies about the 2020 election.
And then there's the bizarre assertion that Elon Musk would become president, and his subsequent, and equally unfounded, fear of President Musk. It's a dizzying mix of misinformation, outlandish claims, and fear-mongering. He even went so far as to say he would launch a new anti-drug campaign focused on how drugs ruin your look, as if that's some groundbreaking insight.
He seems to be operating in a different reality, where facts are malleable, and his pronouncements are treated as gospel by his followers. Remember his comments about Carrie Lake? He praised her and said she'd be doing something big, but offered no concrete details or plans. It's all smoke and mirrors, designed to keep his name in the headlines and his base energized.
It really is a tale of two presidents. One focused on governing and leaving a positive legacy, the other on stoking division and clinging to past grievances. It's a fascinating study in contrasting leadership styles, and it raises some important questions. What kind of leadership resonates most with people? What do you prioritize in a leader?
It's a question we all need to grapple with, especially as we head into another election cycle. These contrasting approaches, these different visions for America, are going to be front and center in the coming months.
And it's not just about personal preference. The choices we make as a nation, the leaders we choose to follow, have real tangible consequences for everyone.
Absolutely. It's a critical moment for the country. We're at a crossroads, and the path we choose will shape the future for generations to come.
Thinking about the stark differences between Biden and Trump, it really underscores how much leadership matters. It's not just about holding a position. It's about the values you embody, the actions you take, and the impact you have on the world around you.
Biden, with his focus on policy and tangible achievements, seems to be striving for a legacy of competence and stability. He wants to be remembered as someone who got things done, who made life better for everyday Americans.
But some might argue that his approach lacks a certain spark, a certain charisma that can inspire and mobilize people. He's often perceived as more of a manager than a visionary.
That's a valid point. And it's a contrast to Trump, who, despite his controversial rhetoric and actions, possesses a certain magnetism that resonates with a segment of the population.
His supporters see him as a fighter.
Yeah.
Someone who isn't afraid to challenge the status quo and speak his mind, even if it means bending or breaking the rules.
But that very same disregard for norms and conventions is what alarms his detractors. They see it as reckless and dangerous, a threat to democratic institutions.
It's a fascinating paradox. Both men have their strengths and weaknesses, and their approaches to leadership appeal to different values and priorities.
And that's what makes this discussion so crucial. As we move forward, as we make decisions about who will lead us, it's essential to have a clear understanding of what each approach entails, what each vision for America represents.
So as you reflect on these contrasting styles, these divergent paths, ask yourself, what resonates with you? What qualities do you prioritize in a leader? What kind of future do you want for this country?
These are questions worth pondering, and if this conversation has sparked some thought-provoking insights for you, we encourage you to leave a like. Your engagement helps us reach a wider audience and continue these important conversations.
And don't forget to subscribe so you can stay tuned for more deep dives into compelling and thought-provoking topics.
Yeah, it really is a pivotal time.
It is, and as we've seen, the choices we make about leadership have profound implications for all of us.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up this exploration of contrasting leadership styles, let's leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
Leadership isn't just about the person in charge.
Right, it's about all of us.
It's about engaging in these conversations.
Critically evaluating the options before us.
And ultimately making informed decisions about the kind of future we want to create for ourselves and for generations to come.
If you enjoyed this discussion and found it valuable, we'd love for you to hit that like button and subscribe for more insightful explorations just like this one.
We appreciate you listening.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving for a better tomorrow.